Hey, hi, welcome back to my tutorial. Today in this video we will be talking briefly about builder design pattern. So what is builder design pattern? It is a creational design pattern which is used to create a complex object from a bunch of other objects from its representation. The pattern is used when you create an object that is independent of the main class. Immutable objects can be built without much complex logic. So why builder pattern and what problem does it solve here? Builder pattern helps to minimize the number of parameters that are passed in the constructor in order to instantiate the object. It helps us to avoid passing the null value in a constructor while object instantiation. Let me put that into an example so that you will get a clear understanding in that. Think like a client is planning to build a house. The house contains roof, window, and rooms and much more. One more customer is planning to build a house. He wants a house with a garden, and one more customer with a swimming pool. You can see like house 1, house 2, house 3 or the three different representation of the house. So what we will do, we will be creating each different constructor in order to instantiate the house, right? So we will end up by creating a number of constructor based on the customer requirement. The builder pattern helps us to minimize the number of constructor that are being created, and it will reduce us to pass a number of parameter in order to instantiate an object. So let me explain how the builder pattern works here. Think like a client is planning to build a house. So what we will have is the blueprint of the house that are going to be created. The blueprints are a roof, window and rooms, garden, swimming pool and kitchen. So what the client will do is he will approach that to the engineer. The engineer will get all the information that the client require, and based on the client requirement, we will build a house. Some client will be required normal simple house like roof, window, rooms, kitchen, and some will require the houses with swimming pool, and some will require the houses with a garden, right? So based on the requirement, the engineer will be create an object and return back the object to the client. Let me put that into the coding example so that you might be understanding much more clearly. Now I have opened Eclipse and I was created 5 different files. Let us define the method that are needed for house object. Public void number of walls. We pass the parameter as integer walls. Public void number of floors for the house. Int floors. Public void number of windows. Int windows. Public void is garden needed of type boolean garden. Public void is swimming pool needed of type boolean swimming pool. Public void number of parking slots. Int right, parking slot. Let us implement this house interface in a house object. implements house interface. Add all the unimplemented methods. Just define the fields for the house object. Private int walls. Private int floors. Private int windows. Private boolean garden availability. Private boolean swimming pool availability. Private int parking slots. Let us assign the values. Walls is equals to walls. This dot wall walls refers to the house object and this wall refers to the parameter and value that is passed in the number of walls method. Similarly for other methods too. This dot source is equals to source. This dot windows is equals to windows. This dot garden availability is equal to garden. This dot swimming pool availability is equal to swimming pool. This dot parking slots is equals to parking slot. So now we have assigned the values. Let us create a getters for that. For each and every fields here. Walls, floors, windows, garden availability, swimming pool availability and parking slots. So for that public int get walls and it will return the walls. Similarly for other fields also. Source get windows, windows. It's of type boolean. Return type will be the boolean. Garden availability and return back the garden availability. The swimming pool. It's a swimming pool availability. And return type will be the boolean, right? Boolean. Similarly for the parking slot. The return type will be the int, so it will be the int here. Let us create a two string method here. Right click, source and generate two string method. It will take all the fields and it will generate a two string method. So this is a two string method. Okay. Let us create a engineer interface that are required to build a objects in a, fields in a house object. public void build walls it will of type int walls public void build source and if type of integer source public void build windows integer of windows public void build garden of type of boolean garden public void build swimming pool it's of type of boolean swimming pool public void build parking slot of type integer parking slot. So this engineer is responsible for returning the house object. So for that, let us define the method public will return a house object get house. Okay. Now let us implement this engineer interface in an engineer object. Implements add unimplemented methods. Okay. Let's create a constructor for the engineer object public engineer. When the client is requesting an engineer, the engineer is responsible for creating a house object, right? For that, let me create a field of house object. So whenever the client is requesting the engineer, the house object will be created. So now the client is going to request the engineer. Mm, Whenever the client is calling the requesting the engineer is responsible for creating the house and getting the requirement from the client. So now the client is trying to build a walls which is getting from the client object. Okay, for that house dot number of walls we are going to set the walls based on the client requirement walls. Similarly for the other fields house dot number of floors is equal floors house dot number of windows house dot garden mirror. Okay, house dot swimming pool mirror house dot number of parking slots. And here this get object is going to return the house object, right? This dot house. Yeah. Now the client is going to request his requirement to the engineer. So for that, let us create an engineer object. New engineer. So whenever this new engineer is called, it is going to create a house object. Now the client need a 5 walls For that, engineer dot build walls of 5. Now the client needed 2 floors. Build floors of 2. Engineer dot now he needs 15 windows. 15. And he don't want garden, but he needs a swimming pool. Engineer dot build swimming pool. So I make this true. He want one parking slot. Engineer dot build parking slot as one. Now he given all the requirements to the engineer. The engineer is required to return back the object, right? For that, let him put it into the sysout. Engineer dot get house dot. Now let us execute this method. This class. See, as per the client requirement, we have been created this house object, and the engineer returned back the house object in a form of the toString method. In the form of the toString. So it has a wall of 5, floor of 2, windows as 15. We didn't specify the garden availability, so by default it was returned back the false. Swimming pool he needs that, so it was written as true, and parking slot as 1.